Hi guys, my name is Tyler Moran, and the title of the paper I wrote for my master's thesis is called The Declining Health of the Fire Service. The reason I wrote my paper on this issue is because it's near and dear to my heart. I'm a 12-year member of the Air Force Academy Fire Department, and I care deeply about the profession and the community that I've been sworn to serve. So currently, NFPA 1500 states that all fire departments shall develop a physical standard for those who engage in emergency operations. So this is basically anybody who is going to be on the emergency scene, everybody other than fire service administrators. Now, despite this requirement, we've seen nationwide an epidemic in lowering of standards. Most recently, one of the more popular fire departments, FDNY, has been scrutinized for this exact thing. And they attributed it to minority hiring and trying to get more women into the fire service. So this led me to ask a couple of questions. The first is there a need for a national standard in the fire service? Or are firefighters maintaining fitness levels high enough to complete the rigorous fireground tasks that could be asked of them at any minute? Are we seeing recruits show up at academies more out of shape than in prior years, 10, 15, 20 years ago? Does geographical location have anything to do with fitness levels? And are we seeing more injuries in the fire service, both on the emergency scene and in the station, due to lower physical fitness levels? My hypothesis is that there is a need for a national accepted standard in the fire service, both for active and new firefighters. The standard should be the same for both men and women. It should be enforced and tested annually, and there should be a slight deviation in the standard based on age, meaning that as you get older, the standard should decrease. The reason I feel that there's a need for this standard is because I think there's an overwhelming trend in the fire service of kind of a stagnant lifestyle, and there's really just a lack of accountability amongst firefighters themselves and fire service administrators holding those firefighters and those kind of mid-level officers accountable. I believe that new recruits are showing up more out of shape than they were in previous years. I think this is just due to a pool of kind of out-of-shape applicants. I believe geographical location has a part to play in lower physical fitness levels. So I believe that kind of where you live depends on the higher or lower standard of physical fitness level that you will see in applicants. And I believe that we as a community, we as a fire service as a whole, owe it to the communities that we serve to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And we have to change the culture from within, which is why I believe that there's a need for organizational change within the fire service. This paper draws from data and literature collected and presented from a deductive etic perspective using metadata analysis. My paper is written as a narrative, and it's quasi-experimental using an opt-in survey to gather data from anonymous participants with an etic and emic theme analysis. So what did we find? What do the results tell us? Well, first, the data show that firefighters' VO2 max levels tested just above what would be expected for those living sedentary lifestyles. And it also showed an increase in body fat for firefighters in all age groups. So lower cardiovascular fitness levels and higher body fat levels. Now, although this mirrors kind of the American population, this is unacceptable for the fire service and firefighters as a whole, basically because we know that fireground tasks can elevate heart rates up to 97% of maximum output for firefighters, and this is just in PPE and SCBA. This is without the added induced stress to the cardiovascular system that heat and fire applies. Aside from just this data being alarming, one thing that it did prove or disprove was my original hypothesis that older firefighters would be more fit for duty than younger firefighters. And this was originally based on the idea that older firefighters kind of knew the level of fitness that was required for fireground tasks, and that they would maintain a higher physical fitness level. Um, but the data proved the opposite. The data proved that younger firefighters had higher VO2 max levels than the older firefighters. The data also showed that although younger firefighters were in better shape than the older firefighters, the pool of applicants that we're drawing from are more out of shape than ever or than in years past. This is based on BMI levels measured in over 756,000 applicants. And it just showed a drastic increase in BMI levels across all age groups. As far as geographical location, it's certainly the data that we collected or that I gathered from the CDC showed that there's indeed a stark contrast in fitness levels based upon the state that you live in. Colorado was one of 2 states with an average BMI of under 25%. Above 25% is considered obese by national standards reported by the CDC. And lastly, the data there was no data essentially on or available. There's no data available on firefighter injuries as it relates to fitness levels. However, I can attest that there's a direct correlation in lower physical fitness levels and an injury. Just in my department and in my fire station alone, I see more injuries to individuals who have lower physical fitness levels. So how do we apply the data or the results that we gathered? How do we drive change? Well, there's essentially 3 players in the room that can do this. There's firefighters, there's fire administrators or fire service leaders, and there's the collective bargaining units. In this case, the largest of those is the IAFF. So firefighters, first off, they have to be courageous followers. They're not writing policies, but they have to start leading by example and holding their peers accountable. They have to stop being sheep followers. We've got to start being star followers. We just have to care more about the community and the service that we provide for that community. Fire service leaders and administrators have to start being the type of leaders that followers want to follow. They have to start displaying qualities that can be mirrored to produce good for the fire service or good outcomes for the fire service. They have to start upholding and enforcing policies and write new policies when there are no policies in place. They've got to work diligently with the IAFF and other applicable bargaining units to develop a national and enforceable standard for physical fitness. The IAFF or other applicable bargaining units have to they've got to represent their laborers, right? So they've got to realize that there's a need for a physical fitness standard in the fire service. They've got to stop promoting mediocrity and come to the negotiating table, not looking to save jobs, but to better the lives and the profession of those that they represent. Represent the people better by developing and working with fire service leaders to develop a national standard. In summary, I'd just like to say that I hope that we can see change within our organization as a fire service one day. I hope that cultural trends can start to sway in the opposite direction that they're currently heading. Not just for the health of the fire service or the firefighters, but for the communities that we're sworn to serve. I hope that fire administrators can negotiate with the collective bargaining units and come up with an applicable fitness standard that we can be proud of. I can only hope that until then, firefighters will stand up against cultural norms and start to lead by example. I hope that one day I can see the organizational change that the fire service clearly needs. Thank you guys for your time.